talk to Savvy Cat Anna. And because I realized in doing a bit of research about Savvy Cat Anna, we've been talking together for over a couple of years now, I think. And I was reminded of her amazing mission, which we will talk about now, because we'll give her a big round of applause. And bring it in. Hola, bom dia, tudo bem?
Bom dia.
How are you, Anna?
And we're having a very sunny day. I think you are in the Silver Coast too. Like it was raining just now, and now I have just sun coming through my window. So
you are in Caldash at the moment?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, both on the Silver Coast. There's sunshine coming through my window too. The temperature outside is currently, from my weather probe, is telling me 20.1 degrees centigrade and 25 inside in the studio here. Are you enjoying your time in Caldash and on the Silver Coast?
Well, I'm working. I'm actually almost finishing something that I think will be very useful and we'll be launching next week. That is a workbook on how to move to Portugal. And we will be launching that next week for our subscribers. It will be free. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So is this where you come then to get your head down and write and do those sorts of things? Is this your
It does. It has a bit of everything. So it has a bunch of questions and exercises to work with and to, kind of figure out your own things of what you are looking for and being clear on the picture of why moving to Portugal and what you are looking for in Portugal. And then it also has the technical side of things, like what paperwork you need, how you get it done, how to do the financial planning, how to do networking, how to do all of those things.
Love that. So it's holistic, isn't it? It's not just the technicals. There's some little bit of work on yourself and a sort of psychological aspect of moving as well, by the sound of it.
I think that is very important, because if you're going to make a move that big, you need to be clear for it in your head. Otherwise, it's going to be extremely overwhelming.
Yes, well said, well said. And you've seen this, haven't you, with people in this last couple of years? I was just saying there, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now. And I was trying to remember as well how I first encountered you and found out about your services. I think you probably did a few Facebook videos, didn't you, about what you were doing in the early days of Savvy Cat?
Yeah, on the early days, I was doing live videos on Facebook. Actually, right. I stopped doing that because we don't have that much of the audience on Facebook, but we've been doing the videos on YouTube and so on. But that's how you found me. At the time, I was going through the groups and you found me there.
Yeah, and I was, in looking back over this, I was reminded of your mission at the time, which I think is a noble one, and I want to check with you today if it's still the case. In the way that some people in this age that we live in get quite polarized, it's like, the foreigners are getting ripped off, and there's too many of them coming over, pushing up the prices, and the Portuguese people can't afford to buy homes in the communities they grew up in. Your mission was to help both. You had this. You had a win-win vision, didn't you? Let me help and protect the foreigners from exploitation. But while we're doing that, let's make sure that the Portuguese people aren't priced out of their own communities. How's that going?
That's exactly what I still aim to do. I can say it's an easy mission. It's not at all. It's two very different sides. So you have the people coming from higher markets with a lot more buying power. Then you have the very dysfunctional real estate market that we already went over 1,000 times, that doesn't help in anything when it comes to, actually keep things under control and not unrealistically rising the prices. Mm-hmm. And then you have the Portuguese taxation and overall policies towards companies that are equally not helpful. But I'm still staying true to my mission. So I still try to provide, and I provide job posts and stable working conditions for my employees. And I still try to help the expats as much as possible not to buy overpriced things. But the truth is that is getting harder and harder because of simply supply and demand. Just because we think it's overpriced and we don't recommend it doesn't mean there isn't 10 other people that are willing to pay that price. And we can't do anything about that part.
Quite. There's only so much you can do. And some might say, you are doing the government's job, aren't you? That should be what the government are doing, is protecting Portuguese people, and it shouldn't be left to a business person like yourself.
Well, yes, but the government is a bit short-sighted. Our government is rather short-sighted, and even the current policies that they released recently, that not all of them are approved yet, of the housing measures and so on, they were designed to help low-income people, but they are at the same time punishing high-income companies and investors, which is kind of an opposite effect, I guess, because if you punish people for giving good conditions of jobs, that will make that companies won't want to give good job conditions. And if you punish investors for investing in Portugal and put them with a really high tax and the whole golden visa drama not too long ago, where they made a very concerning announce and try to backtrack on the golden visas and the authorizations of investment that were already given. Well, they pretty much are pushing away the investors and the companies and so on, which on the long term, I believe will have a lot more negative impact on the Portuguese society, because there will be less jobs, less houses, and we already are experiencing a lack of offer.
Yep, so true, so true. And it's hard to understand, isn't it, when you're new to this country as a foreigner, to see so much empty property, to understand that there is a shortage of decent property available and on the market. But that's the case. That continues to be the case. Another issue in this mix, because things have changed in this last 2 years, haven't they? You know, who knew that Mais Habitación will be coming along and the golden visa would be such an upset that it proved to be? And now, I was talking to lawyer Daniel Reyes last night about this. We had a question that came in on YouTube on our Q&A last night about hostility towards digital nomads, which seems to be a thing, possibly in the capital mainly, I think. Some hostility developing, that digital nomads are coming in and pushing up the prices. What's your view and experience of that, Anna?
I believe it's pretty much the same issue. So digital nomads come here with a much higher income that is standard for Portuguese, so they can afford much higher rents. And so they tend to also have higher requirements and are willing to pay for them. But that also means that they are inflating the market, because many of them end up paying a lot more than it is realistic for Portuguese people, and there is enough of them to drive up the market. But this is actually an interesting phenomenon, because the digital nomad community, not so long ago, there's an association, I believe it's based in Lagos, that made a press release, an article of how Portugal was no longer affordable, which I found was rather interesting, as you can imagine. Yes. Because the truth is, it's not exactly their fault. Like, it's not the other expats' fault, because the market allows for this type of inflation, and it's the old supply and offer rule. As long as someone is willing to pay for it, no one is going to stop that. So this is kind of an interesting situation, as they are definitely big contributors towards this factor, and yet they are complaining about the results of them.
It's funny, isn't it? And also, I think it's fair to say that it can get a bit nomadist, if I may phrase it that way, because not all digital nomads are the same, are there? There are certainly some very well-heeled digital nomads who are living the dream with their laptop, working from anywhere they darn well please in the world and having a fine time. And why not? And there are lots of other, I mean, you know, with any group of people, there's always a spectrum and a range, isn't there, of experience. And there are a lot of digital nomads who are bootstrapping their way around the world, who aren't part of that phenomenon. They're probably couch surfing, and they're getting tarred with that same brush, aren't they, of pushing the prices up. And there probably are some digital nomads who are like, boo-hoo, it's not fair. We can't afford to be in Lisbon anymore. Whilst the government, on the other hand, is very happy to let them take the heat for something the government should be taking care of. Well, it's those, they don't say it explicitly, do they? But if there's any press about the digital nomads pushing up the prices, like, the government can breathe a sigh of relief that day because someone else is taking the heat for their incompetence.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. It's an interesting picture as well. I know that the Algarve, interestingly as well, is a bit of a magnet for
The
digital
Algarve
nomad.
was one of the first places where this phenomenon started to be very visible
Right.
because it's the dream retirement and vacation destination, and you just have good weather all year long, and
Yes.
it's just so desirable because of that.
Yeah.
And back when I was living in the Algarve, which was like what, 6 years, 7 years ago, damn. But there was a literal separation of markets. Now things are evened out, and you can, because of supply and demand and so on, things are mostly on the high end for everyone. But at the time, there literally was a market priced for locals and a market priced for foreigners, and it was huge differences in prices.
But that's not the case anymore, you're saying?
No, because at the moment there is so much demand that it's just not sustainable
Still,
to have the two markets.
isn't that interesting? And from a Portuguese point of view, then, is the Algarve a write-off? Is it just effectively like another country where it has been colonized by foreigners, and it's not even somewhere most Portuguese people would think of living or buying? Is that what's happened there now?
Not really. The Algarve was always seen kind of a vacation destination. It's actually before Portugal started becoming so popular as a touristic destination, Lisbon and Porto would empty up on August, and the Algarve would fill up. But now that still happens, but the Algarve is extra fill up, and Lisbon and Porto are also fill up.
Wow.
But the Algarve was always kind of the vacation destination of Portugal. And because the industry is very focused on tourism, there isn't a lot of other industries in the Algarve. I believe that's one of the reasons that happens. But I think that's a shame, actually. I think that the Algarve should definitely have invested more in diversifying their industries.
Oh, okay. I mean, there seems to be an ongoing attempt to do that. It often wants to define itself as an innovation and technology hub as well, doesn't it? As well as a tourism
Well,
industry.
I haven't seen that a lot. I think that mostly the Lagos with the bringing the Digital Nomad Association headquarters there. But other than that, I barely know of any. I think there's one in Faro, but there isn't that much efforts into entrepreneurship in Ali Algarve, at least that I know of. I
Yeah.
think Porto, Braga, even Aveiro have been doing a lot more efforts on that.
Yeah, I used to work up in Ilhavo in their innovation hub up there. There are things going on to try and support that, but I guess it is difficult. You're almost pushing against the tide, aren't you, in Portugal? The natural resource is the country itself and its opportunity for tourism. So there's a default to that, is for sure, isn't there? That said, there's still traditional industry which nobody ever seems to find out about, just chugging on in the background, like leather and footwear and cork. Mineral extraction, all these
In the
amazing.
Algarve, there's a lot of clay and a lot of basket work. The
Yeah.
handmade baskets.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing, and we don't get to hear a lot about that. But it's so interesting to see. So, I'm talking to you about how we met 2 years ago and what's happened in that time, and it's been dramatic. Let's face it. And you've launched and you have a business afloat on those choppy seas of change here in Portugal. How would you like to see it in 2 years from now? What do you think is going to happen between now and what will it be, 2025?
I think right now we're at a point where things can go either way, and honestly, it will depend a lot on foreign interest.
Right.
If the foreign interest declines significantly, probably we'll have a market drop. However, if the foreign demand keeps being as high as it has been, and so far it hasn't been showing a lot of signs of slowing down, the prices probably won't be changing anytime soon. And on the contrary,
Okay.
they will keep rising on the long term because of the whole supply reduction that's probably going to be coming along the time.
So you do think I mean, your feeling then, do you think it will settle? And I mean, it doesn't look like any new inventory is going to get built anytime soon. That's not going to happen in the next 2 years, is it? Unless, of course, the infrastructure projects that have already started come online. But do you see stabilization, or do you see more volatility? Or is that too difficult?
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. It will depend a lot on the foreign market's interest, because the trend that I'm seeing right now is that things will not lower. But if there is a significant drop in foreign interest, they probably will. But so far, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Right. Okay. So to put it another, what's your hope?
Well, my hope is for things to lower, but personally, realistically, I don't think that's going to happen.
Wow. Okay. And 2 years isn't a long time, is it? In the scheme of things, I guess we'll be looking.
And in 2 years, even if there was a drop in the next, next year or so, probably in 2 years it would have recovered by then.
Yeah, incredible. And of course, the big influence that you mentioned in there is confidence from foreign investors, isn't it? And that's not been helpful in this last year.
Yes, I think that's the thing. Like the big investment market, it's kind of a different market from the day-to-day residential market, because the big investment market, they work with millions and millions of dollars and usually make big projects like whole buildings and complexes and so on. And those big investors, when the whole golden visa announcement came through, there was a number of big investors and international investors pulling down for business from deals like that. So from buying big plots and so on, because the government created a huge break of trust. And the measure they proposed was pretty much like a dictatorship measure. And there was a break of trust in the government. And especially those big investors, they were offended. And honestly, I would be. And many of them, most of them even, pulled out and are currently mostly holding back. I haven't been working with a lot of big investors, but the thing is, besides the whole golden visa thing, the state doesn't really help at all, because the licensing processes, they are so slow. Everything, the town hall replies takes forever. I have a big project on my hand, and we've been over a year back and forth with town hall, and they are late with everything, and they never take responsibility for anything. We can't find them. We can't sue them. So there's pretty much just money stuck. And honestly, I understand the big investors, and I believe a lot of them are holding out and are waiting for the debt markets to drop, because it's a bit of a different market, isn't it? And even if that market drops, I don't know how far it will affect the actual residential market. Yeah. But what will happen is, if there isn't new construction and there isn't new development, the offer in the market will drop. So those are both factors that will lead to price increase on long term.
And that kind of investor doesn't cope well with being having sort of dictatorial terms. They'll just go elsewhere, won't they? Or they'll wait. Yep. That's the other thing, isn't it? I think the governments of the world have to be, in some way, if they want this kind of investment, they have to play the game with it, don't they? And understand the dynamics of it. Those sort of investors are not fickle exactly, but I guess we'll just go elsewhere, or we'll sit it out until you've had your political crisis.
Yes, that's pretty much. I think a lot of them are just sitting out, waiting for the market to drop so they can take out the spoils, which is a smart decision, I would say.
Yeah, but that's not the sort of decision an individual investor can face. We're much more, us individuals and who aren't the big corporations and hedge funds and so on, have a very different agenda.
Yes, because they can wait it out. They won't run out of money.
Right, they can just sit on it until the time is right. So interesting time for Portugal. Then you mentioned dictatorial tactics. I wonder if you can help us out with something this morning. There has been talk and a request from Coach Turner. Doing a road trip here it is. We're planning a road trip next April and want to join in the 50th anniversary celebrations of the Carnation Revolution, Anna. Somewhere in Portugal. Any suggestions? Preferably not Lisbon. Now, when I first saw this, I'm reminded that my interest in this has tended to be a lot more enthusiastic than a lot of Portuguese people I've met on the subject. I'm thinking, yay, 50 years, it's going to be amazing next year. And when I've talked to Portuguese friends, it's like, we'll see. So what's
I'm very much on the we'll see thing, because it's
why is
mostly
that?
a political thing. Like, if they want to make a whole celebration in order to distract attentions from for something else, they probably will. But I'm not too hopeful on them making a big investment on that just because.
Wow. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about. You know, this maybe a sort of Portuguese indifference for us, wide-eyed, you know, newly arrived. It's like, whoa, they had a revolution 50 years ago. I'm sure there's going to be a big party. It's great. End of fascism, dictatorship, and so on. But no, not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure most Portuguese people would agree with that framing of it. But I suppose the difference is in what's going to be done about it. Okay, well, we've got some suggestions then. Maybe come to Setúbal, Zeca. Alfonso wrote Granola, the theme tune, of course, of the revolution, right? The song that was the no turning back signal for the revolution. He was from Setúbal, and the city's been preparing for a couple of years. So that might be a good place to go. Would you agree with that one? Do you like Stubs?
Yeah, I think Setúbal is one of those places that has been drastically developing. I think Setúbal is one of the places that has experienced the most drastic rise in prices in the past 2 years, to be honest.
Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? 50th year of the Carnation Revolution, and dealing with its own globalization and gentrification challenges. Another political issue. That's quite a meeting point of different ideas, and maybe a good place to go for the 50th celebrations. Porta de Mos have been preparing for the 50th anniversary by collecting people's memories of the revolution. That's Pam, who lives in Alcobaça. I know in Caldas, that was meant to be one of the starting points of the revolution, wasn't it? Because wasn't there a military prison there and a military garrison? And some of the early starters of the revolution were imprisoned, I believe, in Caldas. And maybe they got forgotten about for a few weeks while the celebrations were going on. It's like, oh, we better let those guys out who started it a week ago.
I confess I am not fully in memory of that. I know I study it, but I cannot confirm or deny right now because I don't fully remember.
Fair enough. And I'm sure, like a lot of Portuguese towns and cities, it will have its own claim on any particular recipe, event, alcohol. There's always a particular angle, isn't there, for every town and city, and the angle on history here. So Porta de Mos there, Coach Turner, another option. Thanks, Sarah. One of our stops is in I struggle to pronounce this. Am I right in saying, is it Alcácer do Sol?
Alcácer do Sol.
Casa do Sol, you call it?
Alcácer.
Alcácer do Sol. Okay, and that is another seriously improved town, isn't it?
It's also been developing, but it's still on the early stages of development, I would say.
Okay, and part of this sort of south of the river,
which is good for the investment perspective. It's probably going to keep rising.
It's very beautiful there. I don't know if you're going there, Coach Turner, because you've been there before, and what's attracted you there. But we stopped off there one evening driving back from the Algarve, I think, and had a lovely evening.
And it's not do Sol, it's do Sol, like salt. Alcácer do Sol.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much for that. I've had a lot of tuition this morning. Bom dia todos de Porto. Boarded a city bus yesterday, extra long with accordion connector between the coaches. I was the only one on board. You must have felt like a queen on there, Virginia. Everyone is in Lisbon or in the Algarve. Hola, Nuno, as well this morning. Pam is preparing for this is the event we mentioned yesterday, the ReFood Open Day tomorrow in Alcobaça for anyone who wants to learn about volunteering. Volunteering is a great way to meet new people and give back to your community. That may well be written about in Anna's new guide as a way.
It actually is.
Yeah, there you go. Pam, that sounds brilliant, says Pete. Have an awesome day. The communities here are so inviting, and giving is a great way to give back. And I'm sure to improve your Portuguese. Yeah, it's a great idea. And Pam is legendary in that regard. We've talked before about that. Maybe it's time for you to come back on the show, Pam, to talk about that. Susan's hired a Portuguese gardener. It's fig time in central Portugal. Come to the back garden, tidy it up, and pick some of what seem like 1 million figs. It is the season of 1 million figs. at the moment. Doing it for baddie, appreciation and gratitude. Figs are great this year. It's August. This is the sweet spot, literally, isn't it? Here in
I got
Portugal.
it. My uncle got drunk on figs some time ago because we have fig trees on the farm, and well, the figs are on the sun, and they have sugar, so they can ferment a bit.
They can,
So
can't they? Yes.
my Greek uncle, he wasn't used to that yet, so he ate a bunch of figs directly from the tree, and yeah, it he got a bit drunk,
Gee.
and his stomach didn't appreciate it either.
Oh, okay. All right. There was a price to pay. by the
Yeah,
sound
and there's another funny thing because birds also get drunk on figs. And then the cats really like that they get drunk on figs. Like they will wait around the tree to see if the bird get drunk, and then they are 10 times easier to catch.
That sounds like a great afternoon out for a bird, doesn't it? Get home. Where have you been? Well, I ate a few figs on the way home. Got a little bit tipsy. Had a fight with a cat. I'm lucky to be here, basically.
Well, yeah. If they survive the fight with the cat,
they
it's a
survive the
great
fight.
evening for the bird.
Yes, absolutely. Different varieties of. Oh, we've got into some fig talk here. People giving a fig, so to speak. They are great this year. Oh, and Victoria, thank you for that. We'll play those videos in the last half-hour section here. Suze, look at that. You've got a million figs and you don't like them. So many. Maybe can sell them at market. I also need to research ripeness. Seriously, no, nothing. Well, that's a problem. The best way to tell the ripeness of a fig is to pop it in your mouth, isn't it? Or to get.
No, actually, you usually tell if they are ripe if they have a honey drop on the end.
Yes. That's a good signal there, Suze. And why not put a few in boxes and leave them outside your front door on the doorstep, and people will take them away. That's if they're not inundated themselves, because that tends to be what happens there. Everyone's fruit arrives at the same time. Is it not a bit early for figs? My husband loves them dried. That's another thing you could do, Pam, is dry them. Suze, you could dry them. The tree is huge. You're nodding your head there. It's about the time, isn't it, Anna?
Yeah. We already have some in the village, so yeah.
Yeah, there you go. The tree is huge and the figs are falling. That's another sign right there, as well as the birds and the uncles. Different varieties of figs and microclimates mean they can ripen anytime from June to December and produce many crops. We have 6 trees, says Pete, and have to keep checking when each is ready. That's a very clever bit of planting, that. So you have a crop on rotation there rather than everything happening at the same time. Going to the local junta office today, fingers crossed, visitor visa, or I'll have to make another plan. Get it done. Well done, Suze. Fingers crossed with that. And have a great weekend. Bon fin de semana to you. 50-year celebration of the revolution. Well, it's not the Pope. Have we spent all our money as well? Some people were complaining about
that's a whole other thing. The whole Jornadas Mundiais da Juventude thing. It's I've been seeing a lot about it from my friends in Lisbon, and yeah.
Tell us foreigners then, what's going on? Are there complaints about how much money's been spent, how much disruption's been?
Well, there's a lot of complaints. There is a chaos. It's completely chaos in Lisbon. My Lisbon agent, even the metro subways have been closing because there's too much people. And when she told me that, Graciosa, my Lisbon agent, I was like, what's the logic in that? Like, there's too much people. Let's close the metro stations. Like, what happens then?
Yeah.
And then she had to take wait like 30 minutes to get an Uber to get home. Because it's kind of chaos, and I have to share that on our Instagram page because she's been sending some videos of the sheer amount of people that she's just walking through the streets, and there's groups of hundreds and hundreds of pilgrims just going by. And then there is, of course, the other side of it. There has been a bunch of silent protests, so to say, like some graffitis in the city. One of them that's been coming around is the whole, I've been praying for a house in Lisbon well before the Pope arrived.
Okay. So people...
That's one made a lot of rounds, and it's quite smart.
Yes, it is.
Because the prices for the jornadas have been ridiculous. You've been seeing rooms listed for beds listed for €1,000. It's just completely ridiculous. Yeah. There is actually another thing that I discussed with my lawyer just the other day is that apparently there was a bunch of people that came with a pilgrim visa to visit, and then disappeared. So they just
Oh,
used the pilgrim visit to come into Portugal and then are trying to stay here illegally.
wow.
And then there is the whole child abuse situation with there is a few billboards that were put on to bring attention to the child abuse scandals here in Portugal. That says, like, I don't remember the exact number, but it's 4,000 something children abused in Portugal by the Catholic Church, and the billboards were taken down.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, I think that was one of the Pope's first meetings, was with a group representing people who've been abused by members of the Catholic Church. So fair play to him on that. And it is a disgusting situation, no question about it. And hopefully something that can be addressed and resolved. The how it was also tied in with the housing situation. I think I saw a meme that was something like, menos papas, mais casas. So less popes, more houses.
Yeah, but yeah, I like the ones of I was praying for a house before the Pope arrived.
Yeah. T-Duck saying it was that the aspects, the sort of darker aspects of it were swept under the carpet. Was that the carpet of 500
Oh,
euros?
and another thing I just remember was the homeless thing. A lot of homeless people were kind of expelled, and I've seen a bunch of photos coming around of locations where homeless people would gather, where they put, vases and benches and stuff, so it would be impossible for them to be on there. So that's
really,
another
right.
one.
So this is the other side we're hearing about, and hopefully that this brings attention to these difficulties that were here before the Pope arrived, and before lots of money was spent on a big event attracting people to the city. It, of course, has its upsides, but let's hope that the attention that's brought to these things, these matters that have perhaps been swept under the carpet, don't remain there after the Pope and the young people from all over the world have left, and that something can be done. There's even on my street last night, some of our neighbours were hosting here in San Martino de Porto. They were hosting some young folks who'd been in Lisbon. There are young people all over the country, it would appear.
Yeah, and someone for Porto were saying that Porto was a lot quieter, but the weekend before this all started, so last weekend, there was a bunch of crowds and groups passing through Porto, and it was chaotic in Porto too, and I'm expecting that to happen by the end of this too.
Right, well, I'm having a picnic in Caldas later on today. I hope there's not going to be any rowdiness there. We're going out for a peaceful afternoon.
We'll see.
We shall see. I'll be grumpy and cantankerous, or whatever that expression was, cranky about it if that's the case. Even been crowds of youths here in Alcobaça, says Pam as well. So it's been great talking to you as ever, Anna. There is an upcoming social event where people can come and hang out, right, in Caldas soon?
Yes, it's going to be on the 11th of August. So it's exactly a week from now.
A week. So next Friday, a beautiful meal has been organized where you'll be able to hang out with
yes.
the team.
Some people are complaining about the price, but do keep in mind this is going to be like a 5-course meal. Like literally, you will have 2 main dishes, 3 entrances, and a buffet of desserts, wine and drinks included. Like, it's not full open bar, but it's you can drink as much as you want.
You will be looked after. Okay. Oh,
Yes.
There's always something, isn't there? Talking of crankiness, people are complaining, are they? Well, we don't want them there, do we? Let's have the people who want to go along.
Yeah, this is the whole full day meal.
Wow. Okay, so you're going to need to be taken home in a vehicle.
You need to fast. It's fast.
Yeah, for a couple of days.
The name in Portugal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, fast. Abstain for the weekend thereafter. On the 5th, on the 12th and 13th. You won't need anything to eat, I don't think, for a couple of days after that. And you mentioned your Instagram. Maybe you could tell us the website and when the new guide will be available and how people can get hold of it, Anna.
Yes, so we are pretty much Savvy Cat Realty everywhere. So www.savvy.catrealty.com, like it's written there on the below the name. And our in Instagram and Facebook, we are also Savvy Cat Realty. We're also on LinkedIn, and there's also my private profile, Ana Caramujo, that I also share some of the things that I've been up to. So, and you can also reach out directly to contact@savvycatrealty.com.
Thank you. And a whole team of people, right? We're talking about. That's another change in this last 2 years. You've gone from
Yes, and we work
single
as
operator.
a team and not against each other. So our clients are allowed to explore anywhere they want in the country, and they can come to us with just the idea of the lifestyle they want to have, and we will find the rest for them.
Amazing. And you're into double figures now, aren't you, in the team? I mean, we mentioned there we've got Diana in, who's going to be there for the meetup week today.
Yes, me and Diana will be there for the meetup.
Graciosa in Lisbon. Who else have you got around the country then? How many people?
I have João in the Algarve. I have Irina in the Alentejo. Then I have Diogo in the center area, so Coimbra, Aveiro. I have Teresa in Porto. I have Marco in the north, Braga and up. And then I have a marketing person that's actually based in Coimbra. That's Edgar. And I have my lovely front office that takes care of the email and the first contacts. That's pretty much our secretary, the administrative Katya.
Fantastic. I look forward to celebrating in a couple of years' time, maybe the 5th year anniversary of Savvy Cat Realty. You're doing an amazing job, Anna. You really are. It's, and then the mission is wonderful, to a win-win for not only the clients coming into the country, but for the country itself as well, to make sure you're safeguarding as much as possible within your own efforts.
I like to believe in sustainability, and that sustainability is possible if we look for it.
Yeah, well said, well said. Well, have a great weekend. Bon fin de semana, and I'll see you next week.
Bon fin de semana. Next week? You want me by next week?
I want to come to the party.
To the party. For a moment, I thought you were inviting me to Good Morning Portugal again. Never mind.
That's well, it's fine. No, but my mind was on the food and the wine. Forgive me.
Yeah, that's a good place to be the mind. To have.
All right, ciao, ciao. Have a good one, and say hi to all the team from us. Bye for now, Anna. Ciao, ciao. There she goes. Oh, she got a dum tish. I meant to give her one of these. There you go. Nice big round of applause. Cheers, Anna. Bye for now.